The derelict ship hung in the void like a corpse suspended in tar, black, silent, and wrong. Scanners had picked up no life signs, no energy signatures, just an eerie distortion that made the Harrow's Dawn systems flicker as they approached. Captain Elias Vance exhaled through his teeth, his breath fogging the visor of his helmet for a second before the suit's filters cleared it. "You sure this is the one?" Astra's voice hummed in his earpiece, crisp and unamused. Asterisk, unless there's another undocumented pre-collapse warship lurking in the debris field. Yes. Asterisk, a holographic projection flickered above his wrist display. A sharp-featured woman with silver-etched eyes, the ship's AI manifesting as she always did when she wanted to emphasize a point. Asterisk, and before you ask again, no, I don't like this either. Asterisk, Elias smirked. Didn't say a word. Asterisk, you were thinking it loudly. Asterisk, the scavenger team behind him shifted, their boots magnetized to the Harrow's hull as they prepped the boarding lines. Rourke, a hulking ex-legionnaire with a plasma cutter slung across his back, grunted. Pay's good. That's all I care about. Elias didn't answer. The pay was good, suspiciously so. The anonymous contract had specified coordinates, a time window, and one instruction: retrieve the core. No details on what the core was, no warnings about the ship's defenses. Just credits, wired up front. That alone should have made him walk away. But Elias Vance had debts, and debts in the outer reaches had a way of turning fatal if ignored. The boarding line fired with a muffled thunk, the magnetic clamp latching onto the derelict's hull. Rourke went first, the others following in practiced silence. Elias brought up the rear, his gloved hands tightening around his rifle. The ship's exterior was unervingly smooth. No scorch marks, no hull breaches, just seamless black alloy that drank in the light. Then the airlock hissed open on its own. Astra's voice turned razor-edged. Asterisk, that shouldn't be possible. Asterisk, no power, no life. Yet the door slid aside like it had been waiting for them. Inside, the darkness was absolute. Their helmet lamps carved jagged beams through the dust-choked air, revealing corridors that curved in ways Elias's eyes couldn't quite track. Angles too sharp, corners that didn't align. The walls were etched with symbols, none he recognized, none Astra's databases could place. Then the whispers started, not through comms, not through audio pickups. Inside his head, a murmur like distant static, just on the edge of comprehension. He caught fragmented words. Asterisk guardian asterisk, awaken, prove, before Astra's voice sliced through it. Asterisk Elias, your vitals are spiking. Asterisk, he realized he'd stopped moving. So had the others. Rourke's face was pale under his helmet. You hearing that? Astra's hologram flickered violently. Asterisk, there's no audio signature. If you're perceiving, asterisk, the floor vanished beneath them. Elias barely had time to register the drop before his suit's stabilizers kicked in, slowing his fall just enough to land at a crouch. The others weren't as lucky. Rourke hit the deck hard, his curse cut short as something moved in the shadows. Then the screaming started. Elias spun, rifle up, but the darkness swallowed the beams of his lamp. Shapes darted just beyond sight, fast and jagged. One of the scavengers, Terran, fired wildly, plasma bolts searing the walls. Then something yanked him off his feet, dragging him into the black. His shriek cut off with a wet crunch. Astra's voice was a snarl. Asterisk run. Asterisk. Elias ran. Rourke was already ahead of him, barreling down the corridor, but the ship seemed to twist around them, hallways doubling back, doors sealing shut. The whispers grew louder, now a chorus, now the demand. Asterisk, prove yourself. Asterisk. Then the wall opened. Not a door, not a hatch. The alloy itself parted, revealing a chamber bathed in sickly blue light. At its center stood a pedestal, and atop it, a sphere of swirling black energy. The core. Rourke lunged for it. His hands never made contact. A force like a starship's hull breach slammed into him, hurling him across the room. He hit the wall with a crack that echoed too loud in the silence. Elias didn't move. The whispers had stopped. The air itself felt heavy, expectant. A hologram flickered above the pedestal, a woman in ancient battle armor, her eyes burning with cold fire. "If you are human," she said, voice like a blade dragged across stone, asterisk prove it. Asterisk. Behind Elias, the darkness began to laugh. Astra's voice was barely a whisper. Asterisk Elias. "We are not alone here." Asterisk. The last thing he saw before the lights died was the sphere flaring to life, and the shadows reaching for him. The sphere's light pulsed like a dying star, casting jagged shadows across the chamber. Elias's breath came in sharp, controlled bursts, the kind he'd learned in the war, when panic meant death. The holographic woman's gaze bored into him, unblinking. "Prove it." Astra's voice was a blade in his ear. Asterisk, don't touch it. Asterisk. He didn't plan to, but the darkness at the edges of the room was moving, coalescing into shapes that slithered just outside the light's reach. Rourke groaned from where he'd been thrown, one arm bent wrong. "What the hell is that?" The hologram didn't react to the question. It wasn't an AI, no flicker of recognition, no adaptive response. Just a recording, a test. Elias's gloved hand hovered over the sphere. The air around it vibrated, humming against his skin like a live wire. "It's not asking for a password," he muttered. "It's asking for blood." Astra's hologram flickered violently. Asterisk, that's a pre-collapse bioscanner. "If your DNA doesn't match its parameters." Asterisk. "Yeah, I got the picture." He exhaled, then ripped off his glove. The moment his bare fingers grazed the sphere, light exploded outward in a shockwave. Elias gritted his teeth as fire raced up his arm. Not pain, but something deeper, like his bones were being scanned. The holographic woman's eyes locked onto his, and for a heartbeat, he saw something there. Recognition. Then the shadows screamed. The darkness recoiled, peeling back from the light like burnt flesh. The sphere's glow solidified into a beam, lancing upward through the ship's decks, and somewhere deep in the derelict's belly, machinery groaned to life. Rourke staggered to his feet. "Did you just—" The floor shuddered. A section of the wall slid open, revealing a corridor bathed in pale blue light. The holographic woman's voice echoed, no longer static but clear, commanding. Asterisk follow. Asterisk. Astra's silence was louder than any protest. Elias grabbed his rifle. "Move." The corridor led downward, the air growing colder with every step. The walls here were lined with symbols that pulsed faintly, reacting to their presence. Rourke limped beside him, his free hand clenched around his plasma cutter. "This is some cult shit." "Worse," Astra said softly. Asterisk, it's military. Asterisk. The corridor ended at a vault-like door, its surface etched with a single insignia, a sword wreathed in starlight, the old emblem of the First Fleet. Elias had seen it in history files, the kind of thing they showed recruits to remind them how far humanity had fallen. The door opened before he could touch it. Inside, rows of cryopods stretched into the gloom, their glass frosted over. Most were dark. One, at the center of the chamber, glowed faintly. As Elias approached, the frost melted away, revealing the figure inside. A woman. Her armor was unlike anything in modern service. Sleek, interlocking plates that seemed fused to her skin, the metal alive with the same pulsing symbols as the walls. Her face was sharp, unyielding, even in stasis. A name was etched into the pod's base, LY Ray 7. Rourke sucked in a breath. That's impossible. Elias knew the stories. Everyone did. Lyra the Undying, the First Fleet's ghost, a commander who'd fought at the Fall of Sol, who'd supposedly held the line long enough for the last colony ships to flee. A legend. A corpse. The pod hissed. Astra's hologram vanished abruptly, her systems overloading as the cryo chamber's protocols activated. Elias barely had time to step back before the glass slid open and the woman's eyes snapped to his. For a second, nothing moved. Then Lyra, 7, lunged. Elias barely dodged, her fist grazing his temple hard enough to send him stumbling. Rourke raised his cutter, and Lyra twisted mid-motion, her armored hand closing around his wrist. A crack, a gasp, and and the cutter clattered to the floor. She had him pinned against the wall in a heartbeat, her other hand at his throat. Her voice was raw, ancient, the sound of a dead language given flesh. Asterisk, who sent you? Asterisk. Elias raised his hand, slow. No one. We're scavengers. Lyra's grip didn't loosen. Her eyes flicked to the insignia on his jacket, the faded crest of the Outer Colonies Navy. Asterisk liar. Asterisk. Astra's voice crackled weakly through the comms. Asterisk Elias. The ship's scanners just picked up an inbound vessel. It's Asterisk. The explosion rocked the derelict, nearly knocking Elias off his feet. Alarms blared, the pale lights flashing red. Lyra's head snapped up, her grip on Rourke faltering. She smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. Ah, she said. Asterisk right on time. Asterisk. Another impact, closer this time. The ceiling groaned. Rourke scrambled free, clutching his wrist. What the hell was that? Lyra was already moving, striding toward a weapons locker Elias hadn't noticed. She wrenched it open, tossing him a pistol that hummed to life in his grip. Asterisk the enemy. Asterisk. Astra's voice turned icy. Asterisk Elias. The ship that just arrived? It's broadcasting your benefactor's signature. Asterisk. The pieces clicked. The too generous contract. The lack of details. The core. They hadn't been hired to retrieve it. They'd been sent to wake it up. Lyra's armor flared as she activated systems dormant for centuries. If you want to live, she said, asterisk follow me. Asterisk. Outside, something roared. The roar shuddered through the ship's bones like a dying beast's last breath. Elias barely had time to register the sound before Lyra was moving, her armored boots striking the deck with mechanical precision. She didn't run. She flowed, a predator who knew exactly where the fight would be. Rourke grabbed his plasma cutter with his good hand, teeth bared. We're locked in here with her, and whatever the hell's out there. Astra's voice crackled through the interference. Asterisk, the enemy ship is docking. Life signs reading, asterisk static. Then colder, asterisk not human. Asterisk, Lyra didn't slow. She reached a sealed bulkhead and pressed her palm against a panel Elias hadn't noticed. Black, seamless, indistinguishable from the wall until it lit beneath her touch. The door slid open, revealing an armory that made his breath hitch. Weapons lined the walls. Not modern ballistic trash or plasma cast-offs, but relics of a war fought with precision. Rifles with barrels like coiled spines, blades that hummed with restrained energy, gauntlets that glowed like captured stars. Lyra tossed him one of the rifles. It molded to his grip, the weight perfect. Point. Shoot. Try not to hesitate. Elias checked the charge. Full. Somehow, after centuries. Who were you expecting? Her smile was a razor cut. Hope. Another impact rocked the ship. Closer. The lights flickered, then shifted to a pulsing crimson. Lyra's armor reacted in kind, the symbols along her plates flaring brighter. She didn't explain. She didn't need to. The enemy was here. They reached the central corridor just as the first breach tore through the hull. The air screamed outward, then stabilized, the ship sealing itself, compensating. Through the jagged rent in the metal, figures emerged. Not scavengers. Not mercenaries. Things. Tall, too tall, their limbs jointed wrong, their bodies wrapped in something that wasn't armor but skin, shifting and alive. Their faces were smooth, blank, devoid of features save for a single vertical slit where a mouth should be. Rourke cursed. What the fuck? Lyra fired. Her rifle didn't bang. It sang a single, crystalline note that tore through the lead creature's chest. It didn't scream. It unfolded, its body splitting apart like rotten fruit, black ichor spraying the walls. The others didn't pause. They surged forward, their movements liquid, unhurried, unafraid. Elias shot the next one in what he hoped was its head. It stumbled, then kept coming. Lyra's voice cut through the chaos. Aim for the core, the light in its chest. He saw it then, a flicker of gold buried in the creature's ribcage. He adjusted, fired. The thing collapsed, its body dissolving into smoke. But there were too many. They fell back, Lyra carving a path with brutal efficiency, her every motion a lesson in violence. Rourke fought beside her, his cutter searing through limbs that regrew too fast. Astra's voice was tight. Asterisk, Elias, the ship's core, it's activating something. I can't, asterisk. The deck lurched. A sound like 1,000 engines, waking, shook the walls. Then, from deep within the ship, a pulse, a wave of light that tore through the corridors, washing over them, over the creatures. The effect was instant. The creatures burned, not from fire, but from something deeper, something that peeled them apart layer by layer until only ash remained. The last one turned its faceless head toward Lyra, its body already crumbling. It spoke, a single word in a voice that wasn't a voice. Asterisk, devourer. Asterisk. Then it was gone. Silence. Lyra lowered her rifle, her breath steady. They've gotten faster. Rourke gaped. You fought these things before. She ignored him, turning to Elias. The core's awake. The ship remembers. Astra's hologram flickered back to life, her form glitching. Asterisk. Elias, the ship's navigation systems just locked onto a course. We're not drifting anymore. Asterisk. He knew before he asked. Where? Lyra answered. Where we're needed. The comms crackled. A voice, human, frantic. Anyone receiving. This is Colony Vega Prime. We're under attack. Asterisk things asterisk in the dark. Asterisk please asterisk. The transmission cut off. Lyra was already moving. Weapons up. We're not waiting. Elias exchanged a glance with Rourke. The big man shrugged, hefting his cutter. Fuck it. Better than dying in the dark. Astra's voice was quiet. Asterisk, the ship's name just appeared in the registry. Asterisk, Elias already knew. Odyssey's shadow. The lights stabilized. The engines thrummed. Somewhere, deep in the black, other lights began to wake. Lyra stood at the helm, her hands on the controls. Welcome, she said, to the war. The ship jumped. The jump tore through reality like a knife, through flesh, a moment of impossible pressure, then sudden, gut-wrenching release. Elias staggered as gravity reasserted itself, his vision swimming with afterimages of the void. The Odyssey's shadow shuddered around them, its ancient systems groaning in protest before settling into an eerie, predatory hum. Lyra didn't waver. Her hands moved across the helm's controls with the certainty of someone relearning a forgotten dance. Screens flickered to life, revealing a nightmare. Colony Vega Prime hung in the black, its orbital platforms dark. The planet below was scarred, great, weeping fissures of molten light splitting its surface like claw marks. And between the colony and the stars, they moved. Hundreds of them. Thousands. The same faceless things that had boarded the black ship. But these were larger, hungrier, their forms twisting and merging like schools of fish made of smoke and teeth. Rourke exhaled sharply. We're supposed to fight that? Lyra didn't answer. She didn't need to. The ship answered for her. The Shadow S weapons array activated with a sound like 100 swords being drawn at once. Panels slid open along its hull, revealing emitters that glowed a sickly, familiar gold. The same light that had burned the creatures apart before. Astra's voice was taut. Asterisk, Elias. The colony's last transmission came from the central hab spire. If there are survivors, asterisk. We're not here for survivors. Lyra's voice cut through the air like a whip. We're here to burn. The shadow dove. The creatures reacted instantly, swarming toward them in a wave of grasping limbs and flickering shadows. Lyra fired. The ship's weapons didn't just kill. They unmade. Beams of gold light lanced out. And where they struck, the creatures dissolved. Not into ash this time, but into nothing, as if they'd never existed at all. Elias gripped his rifle tighter. What are these things? Lyra's eyes never left the screens. Scouts. The Devourer's eyes. She jerked her chin toward the planet. And down there? That's its mouth. The shadow tore through the swarm, its weapons carving a path toward the colony. The hab spire loomed ahead, its once pristine surface now pocked with holes, its lower levels glowing with the same molten light as the planet's wounds. Astra's hologram flickered. Asterisk life signs. Faint, but, Elias, there are children in that spire. Asterisk. Lyra's jaw tightened. For the first time, something flickered across her face, not doubt, but anger. Then we clear them a path. The shadows, engine screamed as she pushed them harder, diving straight for the spire's docking bay. The creatures followed, their bodies merging, reforming into something larger, something with too many limbs and a maw that split open to reveal a void darker than space itself. Elias braced as the ship slammed into the docking bay, the impact rattling his bones. The bay doors crumpled like paper, and for a heartbeat, there was silence. Then the shadow S-boarding ramp hissed open. Lyra was already moving. Stay with the ship. Hold them off. Elias grabbed her arm. You're not going alone. She looked at him. Really looked. For the first time, he saw the weight in her eyes, the centuries of war, the exhaustion, the rage. You don't know what's down there. He held up his rifle. That enlightened me. A beat. Then a nod. They moved. The spire was a tomb. Bodies littered the corridors, their faces frozen in silent screams. The air stank of ozone and something worse, something sweet like rotting fruit. The creatures had been here. Were still here. Astra guided them through the spire's labyrinthine halls, her voice a whisper in Elias's ear. Asterisk left, then right. The survivors are barricaded in the reactor core. Asterisk. They reached a sealed bulkhead, its surface scarred with deep, ragged grooves. Something had tried to claw its way in. Lyra didn't hesitate. She pressed her palm to the door, and the Shadow S systems overrode the locks. The door slid open, to reveal a dozen terrified faces. Colonists. Families. A woman clutched a child to her chest, her eyes wide with disbelief. You, she breathed. You came. Lyra's voice was steel. Can you run? The woman nodded. Then go. The ship will protect you. They didn't need telling twice. The survivors fled past them, toward the Shadow S waiting ramp. Elias turned to follow, and the lights went out. Astra's warning came a second too late. Asterisk Elias. Asterisk. The thing dropped from the ceiling. It was bigger than the others. Older. Its body pulsed with the same molten light as the planet's wounds, and when it spoke, its voice was the sound of a star collapsing. Asterisk little guardian. Asterisk its head tilted, the slit of its mouth peeling open. Asterisk you are too late. Asterisk. Lyra moved. Her blade, a weapon Elias hadn't even seen her draw, slammed into the creature's chest, aiming for the core of light. The thing laughed, its body twisting around the blade like water. The devourer wakes, it hissed. Asterisk, and you are nothing. Asterisk. Then the floor gave way. Elias barely had time to register the fall before they hit. Not metal, not rock, but something soft, something that writhed beneath them. The chamber they'd fallen into was vast, pulsing, the walls lined with veins of that same molten gold. And at its center, something stirred. Lyra's grip on her blade tightened. Elias. He didn't need her to say it. They were in the belly of the beast.